The existing wiring for the hot tub appears to be not code compliant based on the information available. The National Electrical Code, NEC, requires a disconnect switch to be within sight of the hot tub according to NEC section 680.10. The existing outlet does not meet this requirement. A general use receptacle is required to be installed between 10 and 20 feet of the inside wall of the hot tub according to NEC section 680.16a. The existing outlet is too close to the hot tub. The owner's manual for the hot tub specifies that it requires 4 number 6 wires for the power supply. The existing wiring has 2 red wires, 2 blue wires, a white wire, and a black wire, but the gauges are not all clear. It is unlikely that a 50 amp breaker would be used with number 12 wires. Additionally, the RNC conduit may not be large enough to accommodate 4 new number 6 wires without violating conduit fill rules. The hot tub's owner's manual states that it should be protected by a 50 amp breaker, but not at the main panel. It is not clear why the circuit is currently protected by a 50 amp 2-pole breaker at the main panel. Given these concerns, it is advisable that the homeowner be informed that the existing wiring is not code compliant and will require a complete rewire job. This should include installing a disconnect switch within sight of the hot tub, relocating the receptacle to within 10 to 20 feet of the inside wall of the tub, and installing 4 number 6 wires protected by a 50 amp breaker located at the hot tub and not at the main panel. Therefore, firstly, a disconnect switch needs to be installed within sight of the hot tub. The purpose of the disconnect switch is to provide a means to quickly and safely de-energize the hot tub in case of an emergency or for maintenance purposes. It should be readily accessible and clearly labeled. Secondly, the receptacle needs to be relocated. The NEC requires a general use receptacle to be installed between 10 and 20 feet of the inside wall of the hot tub. This receptacle is intended to provide power for portable devices such as radios, lights, or cleaning equipment. Thirdly, the wiring needs to be replaced with the correct size and type of conductors. The hot tub's owner's manual specifies that it requires 4 number 6 wires for the power supply. These wires must be properly sized to handle the electrical load of the hot tub and must be suitable for use in a wet environment. Fourthly, the circuit breaker needs to be sized and located correctly. The hot tub's owner's manual states that it should be protected by a 50 amp breaker, but not at the main panel. This means that a dedicated 50 amp breaker must be installed in a sub-panel or disconnect switch located near the hot tub. The circuit breaker must be properly sized to protect the wiring and equipment from overcurrent. In addition to these specific requirements, there are also several other general electrical safety requirements that must be followed when wiring a hot tub. These include grounding, bonding, and GFCI protection. Grounding is the process of connecting all metal parts of the electrical system to a grounding electrode, such as a ground rod or metal water pipe. This helps to protect people from electric shock by providing a low resistance path for fault current to flow back to the source. Bonding is the process of connecting all metal parts of the hot tub to each other. This helps to prevent voltage differences from developing between different parts of the hot tub, which could create a shock hazard. GFCI protection is a type of electrical protection that is designed to protect people from electric shock. A GFCI is a device that monitors the current flowing through a circuit and quickly shuts off the power if it detects a leakage of current to ground. GFCI protection is required for all receptacles located within 10 feet of a hot tub. When installing electrical wiring for a hot tub, it is important to follow all applicable codes and regulations. It is also important to use qualified electricians who are familiar with the specific requirements for hot tub wiring. Failure to follow these requirements could result in electric shock, fire, or other hazards. A more in-depth explanation of each of the concerns include firstly, the disconnect switch. NEC section 680.12 requires a disconnecting means to be readily accessible and within sight of the hot tub. This means the switch must be visible from the hot tub and not obstructed by any barriers. The purpose is to allow for quick shut-off of power in case of an emergency or maintenance. Secondly, the receptacle location. NEC section 680.22a requires at least one 125V, 15 or 20 amp receptacle to be located between 10 and 20 feet from the inside wall of the hot tub. This receptacle is for general use and must have GFCI protection. The purpose is to provide a convenient power source for users without creating an electrical hazard too close to the water. Thirdly, the wiring. The owner's manual specifies number 6 gauge wires, which is appropriate for a 50 amp circuit. The existing wiring with mixed colors and potentially undersized conductors like number 12 is a serious safety hazard. Number 12 wire is typically only rated for 20 amps, and using it on a 50 amp circuit can cause overheating and fire. Furthermore, running multiple wires of different colors through the same conduit without proper labeling can lead to confusion and increase the risk of incorrect connections. The conduit fill also needs to be checked to ensure that the number and size of wires do not exceed the conduit's capacity, as per NEC Chapter 9, Table 1. Fourthly, the circuit protection. Using a 50 amp breaker at the main panel for a hot tub that requires a local disconnect is not ideal. The owner's manual's recommendation of a 50 amp breaker at the hot tub location is in line with best practices for safety and convenience. The breaker should be a ground fault circuit interrupter, GFCI type, to provide additional protection against electrical shock. A sub-panel near the hot tub with the appropriate breaker allows for easier maintenance and troubleshooting. In summary, the existing wiring is not only non-compliant but also poses significant safety risks. A complete rewire is necessary to ensure the hot tub is safe and meets current electrical codes. This includes installing a properly sized disconnect switch, relocating the receptacle, replacing the wiring with the correct gauge and type, and installing a dedicated GFCI protected breaker to local sub-panel or disconnect. It is also essential to verify that all work is performed by a licensed electrician and inspected by local authorities to ensure compliance with all applicable codes and regulations. Remember to always consult the latest edition of the NEC and local amendments for the most up-to-date requirements. Also, the importance of grounding and bonding should be kept in mind. Grounding ensures that any fault current will safely return to the source, tripping the circuit breaker and preventing electrical shock. Bonding connects all metallic parts of the hot tub system to create an equipotential plane, minimizing voltage differences and reducing the risk of shock. Install a solid copper grounding electrode system connected to the hot tub's grounding bus bar. All metal components, including the pump motor housing, heater, and any metal conduit, must be bonded together with solid copper conductors of the appropriate size. The bonding conductor should be continuous and unbroken, and it should be securely connected to each component using approved bonding connectors. Proper grounding and bonding are critical for the safety of the hot tub and its users. Without these measures, the risk of electrical shock is significantly increased. It is essential to ensure that all grounding and bonding connections are properly installed and maintained. Another factor to consider is the type of conduit used. The description mentions RNC, or rigid non-metallic conduit, which is commonly used for underground electrical installations. However, it is important to ensure that the RNC is properly installed and supported. The conduit must be buried at the correct depth, typically 18 inches below grade, and it must be supported at intervals specified by the NEC. The conduit must also be sealed at all connections to prevent moisture from entering. If the existing RNC is damaged or improperly installed, it may need to be replaced with new conduit. In addition to the wiring and conduit, it is also important to consider the location of the hot tub itself. The hot tub must be located on a level surface that is capable of supporting its weight when filled with water. The hot tub must also be located away from any overhead obstructions, such as trees or power lines. The hot tub should be located in an area that is well drained and that is not subject to flooding. It is also important to consider the privacy of the hot tub users. The hot tub should be located in an area that is screened from view from neighboring properties. The homeowner may also want to consider installing a fence or other barrier around the hot tub to provide additional privacy. Finally, it is important to obtain all necessary permits before starting any electrical work on the hot tub. Most jurisdictions require a permit for any electrical work that is performed on a hot tub. The permit process typically involves submitting plans and specifications to the local building department for review. Once the plans are approved, the homeowner can hire a licensed electrician to perform the work. After the work is completed, the building department will inspect the installation to ensure that it meets all applicable codes and regulations. Obtaining a permit is important because it ensures that the electrical work is performed safely and in accordance with all applicable codes. It also protects the homeowner from liability in case of an accident or injury. The electrical requirements for hot tubs are complex and can vary depending on the local codes and regulations. It is important to consult with a licensed electrician to ensure that the hot tub is properly wired and that all safety requirements are met. Failure to follow these requirements could result in electric shock, fire, or other hazards. The most important thing is safety. Improper wiring can lead to serious injury or even death. If there is any doubt about the safety of the existing wiring, it should be replaced immediately. It is also important to regularly inspect the wiring and equipment to ensure that they are in good condition. Any damaged or worn components should be replaced promptly. By following these safety precautions, homeowners can enjoy their hot tubs safely and without worry. Remember, electricity and water do not mix, so it is important to take all necessary precautions to prevent electrical shock. Always consult with a qualified electrician before performing any electrical work on a hot tub. The electrician can assess the existing wiring and equipment and recommend the necessary repairs or upgrades. They can also ensure that the hot tub is properly grounded and bonded, which is essential for safety. A ground fault circuit interrupter, or GFCI, is a safety device that is designed to protect people from electric shock. A GFCI monitors the current flowing through a circuit and quickly shuts off the power if it detects a leakage of current to ground. GFCI protection is required for all receptacles located within 10 feet of a hot tub. If the hot tub does not have GFCI protection, it should be installed immediately. GFCIs are relatively inexpensive and easy to install, and they can save lives. Always test the GFCI regularly to ensure that it is working properly. To test a GFCI, simply press the test button on the device. The power to the circuit should shut off immediately. If the power does not shut off, the GFCI is not working properly and should be replaced. When choosing an electrician to perform electrical work on a hot tub, it is important to select a qualified and experienced professional. Ask for references and check the electrician's license and insurance. Make sure that the electrician is familiar with the electrical codes and regulations that apply to hot tubs in your area. A good electrician will be able to assess the existing wiring and equipment and recommend the necessary repairs or upgrades. They will also be able to ensure that the hot tub is properly grounded and bonded, and that it has GFCI protection. It is also important to get a written estimate from the electrician before starting any work. The estimate should include a detailed description of the work to be performed, the materials to be used, and the total cost of the project. Make sure that the estimate is clear and concise, and that you understand all of the terms and conditions. By following these tips, homeowners can ensure that their hot tubs are wired safely and in accordance with all applicable codes and regulations. This will help to protect them and their families from electric shock and other hazards. In addition to the electrical requirements, there are also several other safety considerations that should be taken into account when installing a hot tub. These include the location of the hot tub, the type of surface it is installed on, and the presence of any overhead obstructions. The hot tub should be located in an area that is well drained and that is not subject to flooding. It should also be located away from any overhead obstructions such as trees or power lines. The hot tub should be installed on a level surface that is capable of supporting its weight when filled with water. The surface should also be slip resistant to prevent falls. The hot tub should be equipped with a cover that can be locked to prevent unauthorized access. The cover should be strong enough to support the weight of a child or pet. The hot tub should be inspected regularly for any signs of damage or wear. Any damaged or worn components should be replaced promptly. By following these safety precautions, homeowners can enjoy their hot tubs safely and without worry. Finally, here are some specific recommendations for addressing the issues with the existing wiring. Firstly, disconnect the power to the hot tub circuit at the main panel. This is essential to prevent electric shock while working on the wiring. Secondly, remove the existing outlet box and inspect the RNC conduit. Check for any damage or obstructions. If the conduit is too small or damaged, it will need to be replaced. Thirdly, pull new number 6 wires through the RNC conduit. Use a wire lubricant to make the process easier. Ensure that the wires are properly labeled and that they are long enough to reach the disconnect switch in the hot tub. Fourthly, install a disconnect switch within sight of the hot tub. The disconnect switch should be rated for the voltage and amperage of the hot tub circuit. Fifthly, install a GFCI protected receptacle between 10 and 20 feet of the inside wall of the hot tub. The receptacle should be weatherproof and tamper resistant. Sixthly, connect the new wiring to the disconnect switch, the receptacle, and the hot tub. Follow the manufacturer's instructions carefully. Seventhly, install a dedicated 50 amp GFCI breaker and a subpanel or disconnect switch located near the hot tub. Eighthly, test the wiring and equipment to ensure that they are working properly. Use a multimeter to check the voltage and amperage of the circuit. Ninthly, have the installation inspected by a qualified electrical inspector. The inspector will ensure that the work is done in accordance with all applicable codes and regulations. By following these steps, homeowners can ensure that their hot tubs are wired safely and in accordance with all applicable codes and regulations. This will help to protect them and their families from electric shock and other hazards.